Okay, everybody, let's take it from the top.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Hi ho everybody and welcome back to D Plus Us, the show about all things Disney. I'm one of your hosts, Griffin. Now, Griffy D-Pad, and with me as always is the amazing, the marvelous Mr. Mitch George. Dude, we are back!
We're back. I've got my steaming hot cup of copium and I'm ready to go.
Oh, that's right, folks. The SAG-AFTRA strike is over. The WGA strike is well over.
Yes.
So we are back to talking about current movies.
That new. We got some stuff to catch up on, Griffin. We said we were going to do a whole bunch of pre-recording through this thing and just have a whole bunch of stuff to throw at everyone right away. And almost none of that happened.
Well, okay, admittedly, I don't know about you, but I was not expecting the strike to end when it did. It was just...
No, but also, we had a Spider-Man episode planned that TBD on that one. We recorded an episode about half of Ahsoka and should probably do the back half at some point.
Of that. No, we are still going to do the Spider-Man episode. We do still have a Loki episode planned. We will be doing a smattering of Marvel content coming y'all's way because things are great, things are happening, and we are excited to talk about them. But yeah, obviously there's a lot of stuff that came out over the last few, what has it been, 4 months?
Since the start of the writer's strike. That was, I want to say, 160-ish days.
So whatever the math is.
And then the actor started after that was roughly 140. Mm-hmm. So it's been at least four maybe 5 months.
There's a lot of stuff that's come out over that time that we do want to talk about. And we'll be getting to it bit by bit. We are only one podcast. We can't do everything
May 2nd was the beginning of the WGA strike.
So there's stuff we want to hit. You know, we do want to hit Haunted Mansion eventually. We do want to do Loki.
We just got the Santa Clauses season 2 just started. We're ready to do that weekly, Griffin?
I could not care less. There's stuff we want to do. There's stuff we are working on.
Hear me out, though. What did drop is Behind the Attraction.
And we will be doing that. We are probably going to do weekly video episodes of that. I don't know. Yes. We will definitely do weekly episodes when Percy Jackson starts because...
Oh, you got so lucky on that one.
Right? Dude, I got so lucky when it comes to special interests between that and the Marvels. But yeah, obviously this episode is about the Marvels. We are going to be talking about the Marvels in full spoiler. We're going to start spoiler-free, though. Don't you worry about that. We'll start off right off the bat, Mitch. Now things are done. Now that we are back... We've seen another Marvel movie in theaters.
We have.
The last few years of Marvel movies have really been hit or miss. How do you feel?
I would argue more misses than hits.
How do you feel?
For the general audience.
Fair. How do you feel about the Marvels?
This is the most fun I've had at a movie theater since Spider-Man No Way Home.
I'd say you like this movie then.
Pretty good. I think for me, it's one of the better projects to come out post Endgame. I was a fan of Brie Larson and the casting that was done for Captain Marvel. I really enjoyed that movie. I really enjoyed the character of Monica Rambeau in WandaVision. I think she's phenomenal here. And Iman Vellani, got to be repping Canada's very own. I think she's the star of this film. And I anticipated that when this was first announced. And I'm glad that I was right.
Yeah, I'm always the person who comes into this stuff significantly more positive than everyone else, especially over the last 3 years. Because I'm not looking at these with a heavy critique lens, right? I go in, I look for the fun stuff.
Is it a fun? You're looking for a fun time. Mm-hmm. You're looking to have a fun action adventure-y thing that happens in the Marvel realm. Right?
Exactly, and I look at some stuff and there's some things I very much dislike. Loki season 1, Multiverse of Madness. We got
to get into that when we talk season 2 because I'm surprised about that.
Season 1 still sucks. Season 1 is a fundamental misunderstanding of Loki, but also understanding other pieces. We'll get into that when we talk Loki.
Yes, we will.
That said, and this is not hyperbole in any way, shape, or form. Not only is this the best Marvel movie to come out since Endgame, but this is better than 90% of the movies that came out before Endgame for me. This is such a perfect Marvel movie for me. There's plenty of critiques I can give for this movie when it comes to actually breaking down the bits and pieces of it. Like, it is just story. There really is no beginning, middle, end to this movie. Stuff just happens and then stuff stops happening.
Yeah,
but
I think that's part of a lot of people's concern with the MCU just in general now is there's so much that happens outside of the scope of the individual thing that you're watching that can become difficult to keep up with it. And I think we're going to have that same trouble. Like you've got from,
but here's the thing about this one with this critique that we have a lot of this Marvel. I don't think anything is necessary for you to watch this movie. I think there's other things. No, let me finish. There are things to watch for this movie that will make things make a lot more sense. But I don't think anything is required viewing for you to go into this movie, love the characters, and have a good time.
I agree with that. What I was going to get into is with the writer's strike and the actor's strike wrapping up the way it did, we've only got a single MCU film release next year. I think we only have one in the DC universe as well with
No, that comes out before the end of the
year.
No,
Aquaman is December. There is something, and I can't quite remember it. I'm going to look it up. But we've only got one MCU film next year, which is Deadpool 3. And I would argue that movie has 20 plus years of baggage that requires viewing to an extent going into it. And I do think that there are a few projects that would have made this film better for the average audience member.
Yeah, if you've watched Captain Marvel, if you've watched
my mom and sister, don't see this until you've seen Miss Marvel.
Yeah, everyone should watch Miss Marvel. Miss Marvel is still some of the best Marvel content, period. And I stand by
Joker Folie à Deux is the only DC movie coming out next year. Just
gross.
FYI.
Okay, well,
yeah, that's still happening.
That's a skip. No, I stand by what I said though when we talked about Miss Marvel when that came out. Iman Vellani is the single greatest casting from the MCU.
She's going to take Kevin Feige's job one day.
It's hilarious to me, like how good she is in this role, and like how good Brie Larson is in this role. How good? Oh God, why can I never remember?
Teyonah Parris.
Teyonah Parris. Thank you. I'm going to write down Teyonah Parris' name at some point because she steals the movie in some of her scenes. But like Iman is,
she's the smartest character in this movie, which is saying a lot knowing the cast of characters that are here.
I love our recurring bit of her being like her explaining things how a way that like totally makes sense, and then like, okay, dumb it down for us, please. It's a great bit, like
which I think part of that is done so that the rush that goes on in the third act can occur. I'm going to be as spoiler free as I can because there's a lot there that kind of gets hand woven away. And it's just like, okay, that's a lot of context to take in 35 seconds for what happens there, but we'll get to it.
Yeah. I think there's definitely, like I said, there's bits and pieces you understand. I think the use of jump points in this is super cool to me. Jump points are kind of one of my favorite technologies in the Marvel universe, largely because of the Guardians of the Galaxy ride at Epcot.
Fair. So I think there's a lot of lore built into intergalactic travel here, which I think is what a movie like this is meant to set up, which was great to see. Just from a general fan perspective.
And then, of course, like obviously, I love where this sets our characters next, both in terms of our three heroes in this movie and other heroes and the ongoing stories that we're getting here. Like the stuff we've been yelling about for all of Phase 4 at this point of like this Young Avengers storyline that we're getting to, this multiverse storyline that we're getting to. Everything that's set up here is super freaking cool. And this is a must view. I haven't left a theater this excited about a Marvel project, I think, ever.
I do think that there are a couple of things here. I don't think like this is a movie that was made like this feels like a project of passion. Like this feels like someone who cares and understands the character and the world and the approach that they wanted to take to telling a story in this universe with these characters. I don't think that's for everybody. And my TikTok feed would agree with all of these generic white men with beards not being happy about a few things in this movie.
Get fucked, losers.
To an extent, yes.
Let me rephrase. That get fucked is directed. That get fucked is directed at anyone who is hating this movie for the reasons of either sex, race, or any bigoted viewpoint.
Correct. The one thing that I did see that I, by and large, do agree with is this movie suffers from a lot of other superhero films, not just Marvel, but just superhero films in general, the villain or the crux of the story is the weakest part of the story. The strength here is the interactions between the Marvels and between them and Fury and Saber, and the Khan family is the goddamn low-key MVP of this whole damn
Dude,
movie.
when the Khan family joins a fight is when it's like, things are going to be great. But I do agree. Darban as a villain is largely forgettable.
Yeah, Zoe Ashton did a great job with what she was given. And side note, didn't realize she was engaged to Tom Hiddleston.
Right?
So that's a thing.
But yeah, I think she does a really good.
The weakest part of this movie.
I think she does a really good job with what she's given. I don't think this villain is made to be this big thing. It is made to get to the dynamic between the Marvels. Like, that is why. And I also, for what it's worth, I love that they actually just straight up say the name of the team in the movie. That's just a side point.
There's a joke in there that I really like that we'll get to it when we get to the planet that all of those.
But all that said, before we jump into
we're complaining about
full spoilers, Mitch, people need to see this movie in theaters. Like, normally I'd set this up. This is a movie that people need to go see. And I stand by that. It is the most fun Marvel has been in so long. Everyone does a fantastic job. Some of these action set pieces are some of the best action we've seen in Marvel. This deserves to be on the big screen. I get many conversations about the price of a movie theater. But I do think that this is one of those Marvel movies that you should see in theaters.
I haven't seen a Marvel movie more than once in theaters since No Way Home, and I'm probably going to see this at least once or twice more before it leaves theaters.
Yeah, I've seen it
depending on my family's speed of getting through Miss Marvel. I do think that's a predominantly us thing. I don't think if you were to wait and view this at home on Disney Plus, I think that's entirely valid. I do think there is a lot here that is great to see on the big screen. We got CG that looked pretty good. The space stuff looked phenomenal.
I think there was only like one thing to me that didn't look good.
There was one moment where I think it was in one of the trailers where Kamala's like jumping at the villain and it looked very fake.
Here it looks
but
great.
By and large, I thought it was quite well managed. The other thing I think is phenomenal about this movie that doesn't get enough credit is the score.
So good.
The score in this movie is just it's literally out of this world. And that deserves to be heard on the best speakers you can.
The score and the licensed music. I think the licensed music that they do use in
good
this
use
is
of
really
licensed
good.
music.
And on that same note, when they choose not to use music is very good.
Yeah, in a space movie, the lack of sound is important.
Mm-hmm. So yes, go watch this movie. If you haven't seen it already, go check it out. Come on back. We are going to start going full spoilers now from this point forward. Yeah, the only thing CG-wise that I didn't think looked great was Darben dissolving into nothing. Otherwise, I thought things looked really good. Like, even like Kamala's powers, I was kind of getting into them. I still think it's a little weird for us to change her power set for the MCU. I still get why they did it, but I do
they? I'm trying to remember. I haven't watched Miss Marvel in a while. Do they explain in that she can just have the abilities without the bangle?
No, they never do.
No, but it just happened here.
Yeah,
like.
I mean,
okay.
That's presumably the mutant stuff.
That's what I figured is the bangle. Like that, I think her friend explained it as like the bangle awakens something inside her, and then you hear the which I get.
I totally didn't even think about putting that together with the final scene of this movie, the end credits scene. But no, I do think like the fight scenes are really good. I do think the use of Kamala's powers is great.
Just going back to that for a second, before we're not going to actually talk about it, but if you look at the scroll, the final scroll where they look at the licensed music, that's not what they use. They use the theme from X2.
Oh, that's so good.
Which that character isn't even in X2, but that makes me love it so much more. I don't know why, but it does.
It's wild that they got Kelsey Grammer. We'll talk about the post credits.
We'll get there.
We have
he wanted to come back, which is great.
For folks that don't know, we have this issue when we talk about Marvel stuff where we always talk about the post-credit scene first, and we're trying not to do that anymore because it's really a bad habit.
We already failed, so it's fine.
No, I think so much of this fixed a lot of the critiques I had for Captain Marvel, the first movie.
I do think Captain Marvel as a character and Brie Larson's Captain Marvel is better in an ensemble. We've seen that with Avengers. We've seen it here with this movie. And I think that's the way this character, she needs to be an Avengers staple. We don't need a Captain Marvel 2.
Also,
we don't need a Captain Marvel 3. Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel thing.
I mean, I would take it still, but for real, for just a
I
second,
would
like,
too.
Carol is definitely dating Valkyrie, right? Like, the
100%
tension
they're
there
both.
was fucking real.
Oh yeah, you could cut it with a spork.
Also, when Valkyrie pops up, I popped off. Like, I really
did
feel
too, but I also saw it in a smaller theater, which I think was a mistake. I would have loved to have seen this in an opening night crowd that was full. 'Cause the theater I was in, I was freaking out. I was like squeezing Carmen's life.
This,
Like, go with me. I'm trying to watch this movie, and no one
this
else.
just
really
adds
popped
fuel
the way
to
I
my
did.
theory that Love and Thunder was supposed to be a very different. Taika had a very different idea for Love and Thunder that will never get to see.
Yeah, like we had people leave before the mid-credit scene, Griffin. Like that's the kind of theater we were in.
I had the greatest moment of like, so we have the mid-credit scene happen, right? And
Mm-hmm.
everyone in this theater is like shocked because it's that level of mid-credit scene.
Again, are we getting to that at the end? We're getting ahead of ourselves again.
No, this is not about the actual credit scene, but there was this moment. There's only the one mid-credit scene, and like everyone in the theater is like looking at each other, like, okay, so is there another one? Are we good to go? And I'm like, oh god, this is where we're at now. No,
So
let's,
I usually do the thing where we're in our seats and the end credits start rolling, and I'll Google how many end credit scenes there are. And then the article I found, like I only look at like the first 2 or 3 sentences, and then I get out of there. The article I found said 2, but we stayed right to the end, and it was just like the Flurkins. I'm like, oh.
okay.
So at the end, when the Marvel logo comes up, you can hear Flurkins in the background. That's
great.
it.
The Flirkin Kitties are great. This is what I'm talking about when I say like this is the best use of licensed music.
Oh yeah.
Because like not only this is the best use of Cats the musical's licensed music, and that is including Cats the musical.
I mean, that's not saying much about Cats the musical.
It is such a hilarious scene to me, and it's a total just like aside in a like just a non like important B plot, but it's so funny, man. It is the humor in this movie is so good. But going back to it, like I feel like I need to preface a lot of me with this movie of I love Captain Marvel, I love Miss Marvel. Captain Marvel was a movie that I saw in theaters 12 times because a lot of people just wanted to see it for me, and if I got bored, I'd just go see Captain Marvel because I really loved the movie, even though
It's a great movie.
kind of boring compared to some of the other ones.
It's got its issues for sure,
But like
but it's still
a lot of the issues I had for this one has been really with her characterization in particular have really been fixed. She's so much more of a character now. We really are seeing her flaws and whatnot, and I love that the crux of this movie isn't necessarily about the villain, it's that Carol fucked up.
Yeah, I really wish it had leaned more into that, because I think more moments of her breaking this illusion that Kamala has of her, and the really fucked up relationship between Monica and Carol is something I wish had been explored a little more, other than like, a few smaller conversations with like, yeah, I didn't come back because I fucked up.
See, I
Okay.
wish it was explored more, but I also am really happy with it. I love that it wasn't like this horrible, like, I can't forgive you for this, yada, yada, yada. It's like, no, Carol, that's not what family is. Family is going to accept you. I really did love that, and I think that is really well
Yeah, you're
paired.
not Captain Marvel, you're Auntie Carol. Like,
And I think it's really well paired with the cons in this movie.
yeah.
Of like constantly being there to support Kamala. Give her the most shit in some of these scenarios. But
I mean, to be fair, she does royally fuck up their house. Like,
when they're like the opening of like with them like Captain Marvel was here. That is the funniest shit. Like,
yeah, I think a lot of I think we've been spoiled as audiences, to be fair, with the MCU, where there was this decade-long build to Endgame, and you basically had, like, you look at Phase 3, it's banger after banger after banger after banger, Ant-Man and the Wasp, banger after like, it doesn't stop, right? And I do think audiences kind of forget, Iron Man 2 wasn't great. The Incredible Hulk was not great. Dark World, not great. Like, we did have a run of mid movies to set up what ended up being a fantastic Phase 3. I do have my own concerns that they're rushing through this multiverse saga. I understand some of the business decisions behind it of, actors are aging and they need to get to a reset point at some point, and that will be my best guess is Secret Wars will be some sort of soft reboot of the MCU.
I think we might even get it.
So I understand what they're doing here, but it does feel like next year's going to feel weird because we're going to get Echo at the beginning of the year, Deadpool 3 in July. We have no idea when What If Season 2 is coming.
I think everyone's mostly forgotten about that one. But.
Like, there's a lot that has been. Let me find the Disney Plus stuff. Disney Plus.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking up for something for a future conversation I know we're going to have in this episode. So I'm sorry,
no
I'm
worries.
on my phone.
I'm just looking at what else because the only movie we're getting is Deadpool, and then there's like 4 movies the following year, which is kind of insane. But yeah, we don't know when we're getting Agatha. We don't know when we're getting Ironheart. Daredevil Born Again is in a weird place with creative resets, but half the show was already filmed. Like,
with what we've got though, like I'm not looking for towards the future right now because I am like just kind of trying to be happy with where we're at. Like, obviously things are going to take some time, and like that is fine. These are movies, right? That's not the end of the world. When it comes to like the individualism though of this movie, it's like it's so fun. We got to see Nick Fury actually be Nick Fury again. I know a lot of people were very sour on that character after Secret Wars.
Secret Invasion,
thank you. And I think that I'm just kind of at the point where I'm kind of just pretending the Secret Invasion didn't happen.
Honestly, you're probably better off for having done it. It did some weird like that.
It's a totally different character in that one versus this one for Fury. Like, Fury is so fun. Like, Kamala and Fury fighting together is badass.
Oh, it was dope. And then you have like when the powers entangled, and like they never call her Spectrum, right? Or Photon or anything like that. Like she didn't get a code name in the MCU.
Well, they did. What's funny is one of the names they threw out was Spectrum.
I did hear that.
So her name is Photon. Her code name will be Photon. They didn't call it on that, but like marketing stuff is using it. Like if you look at like the popcorn buckets at Regal, they have like their superhero names on all of them, and hers is Photon.
See, I would if we had Regal, but that doesn't exist here.
So like that's what they're doing. But I do love the bit of like I don't need a code name. I don't need a code name. Get to the post credit scenes like fuck. I need a code name.
Hey, someone got a code name in that post credit scene. We're gonna get to it. Let's start at the beginning.
Let's start at the beginning. Let's talk about the cons.
Oh, we don't do plot on these. Right?
We don't do plot on these. No,
it's been too long, Griffin. We haven't done one of these since Guardians. No.
Yeah.
Was there anything after that?
Yeah.
No, for Marvel. Yeah, but I do feel like there was something else.
Are you gonna make me actually bring up our YouTube channel right now? YouTube.com.
Disney releases 2023. You should bring up youtube.com/@D+us. And if you haven't already, you should definitely hit that subscribe button and like the video that you may or may not be watching.
Looks like our last one was Indiana Jones.
We did Indiana Jones?
We did Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Shit, I was going to say we could do that in December.
We also did Muppets Mayhem.
We did Eternals. Or not Eternals, Elemental.
But that was before Indy.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, we had this
Haunted Mansion. That was one we missed.
Mm-hmm. Haunted Mansion we missed. Little Mermaid we missed. Haunted Mansion is not. I'm not waiting that long.
Griffin, we can wait. You can just watch it whenever you want.
I'm not waiting that long.
Like, okay.
I've got a purple spooky vibe going today, anyways.
But I mean, we've got Wish in like a week and a half.
Don't remind me. I'm really excited for that movie. No, I think everything about this movie is absolutely great to me. Like, I think it really is coming down to the fact, though, that, like, Kamala is the center of the movie. Like, we predicted it long ago that Kamala was going to be the heart of this movie, and she really is. I like that they played with hers. I felt like her fawning over Captain Marvel was significantly better than what we've seen, particularly of Peter fawning over Tony. This is what I had...
It felt more comic accurate to the way those characters have interacted, where there is a real, like... It's not a mentor-mentee relationship the way that Tony and Peter are set up in the MCU. It was very much the fangirl in her coming out. And there is a moment where it's like, never meet your heroes. Like, she has that never meet your heroes moment.
Like, right off the bat. And then...
Well, not right off the bat, but more like when they're evacuating the Kree refugee camp.
You mean the Skrull?
Right? Like, there's that moment where she... Skrull refugee camp.
And I would say that's right off the bat for them. That's their first time really
interacting.
interacting.
Yeah,
And we still get some great comedy in that one of like, Kamala, don't talk to those people. Like Captain Marvel very clearly cares. And we got a great line from Fury of like, no one cares more than Captain Marvel and no one gets more flack for it.
Yeah.
Like, because that is why she's out there, right? And like, he knows that even if Carol doesn't, which is always like that wonderful side of Nick Fury. Because like, Laura Rice, Nick Fury and Carol Danvers are friends as much as they are fellow heroes in this universe. Like,
yeah, again, Nick Fury in the MCU is another character to me where it's like, yeah, works in an ensemble, does not work as a starring vehicle. And we saw that with Secret Invasion.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I still feel like he could in the right story. Like, that's why I feel like Carol too. Like, I really do think that she stands alone for good stories. I just don't think we've gotten the perfect story for her to stand alone yet. I do think where we're putting her is a very interesting point of her kind of being. It sounds like she's going to end up being a mentor for these young heroes, and like they very clearly.
I have theories, but I can't talk about them here because it involves other properties that may or may not have wrapped up this week. So like, there's a lot going on in the MCU.
Oh, we're fucking spoiling Loki.
The juices are starting to flow.
Well, we're going to spoil Loki at the end of this episode.
Are we?
Because if we're talking future theories, then yeah.
I guess we have to.
No, I do think like there was this thing running out right where it's like it was kind of clear that before his passing, Marvel kind of wanted to make their 3 new pillars of the Marvel universe for this phase: Brie Larson, Chadwick Boseman, and Benedict Cumberbatch.
Peter Parker.
No, Benedict Cumberbatch.
Peter Parker.
Well, we want that. That's not what they were able to do because of the Fox deal.
I don't necessarily want it. I don't love this version of Peter, to be honest, but we'll talk about that later, I'm sure.
But no, it was very clear that's what they wanted to do, and I think they still very much want Captain Marvel to be a center point of the MCU, and I think she's getting there. I really do. I like this kind of workaholic vibe of her in this one. I love this look. I'm
curious to see what settling down does for the character.
Her being back on Earth is the greatest thing they could do for this character. Don't get me wrong. I love that was one of my big issues of like her constantly just going back up into space. Like, no, ground her. Have her be part of this.
Be a character in this world. Don't run away.
Mm-hmm. Like,
and
my favorite
we get context here for the running away, which I think is all really well done, albeit kind of quickly.
Like, one of my favorite bits in the comic books is like that Captain Marvel, Spider-Woman, Jessica Jones all go and get like brunch and shit together. Like, they have they have friends and they have support systems on Earth. And that's one of those things that Captain Marvel very much needs, and a lot of her stories revolve around. The Life of Captain Marvel is a fantastic comic book where it's going through that stuff. And like, there's this great moment that Carol goes through some shit and all of her friends come to support her. It's really good, and there's some really great stories you can do with Carol here. Carol previously being an alcoholic was one of the things that they touch with on the comic books. And we may not necessarily.
If they didn't do the Tony Stark alcoholic story, they're not going to do a Carol alcoholic story.
Mm-hmm. I don't think so in this regard. I was like, we never got Demon in the Bottle, which is frankly kind of shocking that we never got that.
I do think if we do get a reboot, that if they want to do an Iron Man story, that would be one to do.
Mm-hmm. I mean, hey, just say it's the movie Ultimate Universe, even though the movie universe is practically already the Ultimate Universe. But that's a conversation for another day.
I had a thought. Now I've totally lost it. Oh, I forgot where we're going.
I love these characters so much, man. The use of Intergalactic in this,
so good.
Like that whole training
It's kind of been overused lately, but I still kind of love it.
Intergalactic has been?
Well, just the Beastie Boys in general.
I was gonna say Beastie Boys in general. Like, we've had multiple movies this year that used
Mario,
No Sleep Till
Guardians.
But I think I like the use of it, and I like this training montage. It's one of my favorite training montages we've had. I like this swappy power too. It's such a fun one, and the way you use it in that opening fight scene, it's very good. But also in the final fight, where they just kick Darben's ass.
Yeah, it does kind of make it like, I know like they present that as the main challenge in the film for the characters, but it's just like there was so much else they could have done there, like more of that character exploration that I do still expect us to get more of that, but it's just like, I don't know.
Yeah, I know I'm high on this movie compared to other folks, but I really do think it was the perfect amount for this movie. Like this movie was about the relationship between these characters, not necessarily any one character.
Yeah.
And when that relationship has a exponential amount of growth to it, then I think that this movie is successful in that
I
regard.
think that's reasonable.
Looking through some of the other characters, I do want to talk about the musical world.
Yeah, I figured you would.
That's going to be pretty hit or miss for a lot of
on the internet
people.
are not happy with, but I kind of loved it.
I think it's so stupid, but so funny.
And it's stupid fun in a stupid fun movie, and I just love that they get to the point of like, okay, we have to talk. He understands. Oh yeah, he's bilingual, and that's it. That's all the explanation they give, and so it's deadpan, and I love
that
it.
line got a massive laugh in my theaters.
Mine too, for as small of a theater as I was in.
Park Seo-joon is great. Also, goddamn, he's hot. Like he really is fun in this movie, and I think all of the princess jokes at Carol's expense are great. But even then, that's like that whole scene is a great exploration of those three characters of Captain Marvel. Like,
I'm also so ready for him to be the villain of the next Captain Marvel thing,
right?
Like scorned lover / he let his planet get demolished and drained of its resources. Like that's fucked up.
Yeah, we'll see that if there's any aftermath to those things. Probably not, but
probably not. But I think that's where you take that character if you have to, because she's continually just cleaning up her own messes.
See, I think we have a direction we could go, and if we wanted to do another Captain Marvel solo film, I do think that there is a very interesting character in Minerva. And we should play with that because Minerva is one of Captain Marvel's main villains. That's a whole rant. But no, I do think like the music is very well done, and I don't think it overstays its welcome. It's like 5 minutes, 6 overall of singing, and then they keep rolling. And like I think that works too.
There's like one musical number, and it's fun and it's campy, and that's what you're looking for. It's fun and it's campy, like.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where this, like, to both this movie's credit and detriment, if you don't like something that's happening in the movie, it's going to be over in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't really sit on anything, which I think helps some parts but lessens others. Like, I do wish, like, when we had crash landed on this other planet, I wish we had sat on that a little bit longer. I wish we had rolled with that a little bit more. But
yeah,
I'm, again, happy with what we got. Yada, yada, yada. How do you feel about the fight scenes on this one? Because I really do like the video game-ass nature of these fight scenes.
I was going to say, I saw an interview with Nia DaCosta, the director, being like, yeah, I was inspired by Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. I'm like, yeah, this thing is anime JRPG as fuck, and I'm here for it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the way that they use just the camera movement for these fight scenes is so good.
The fight in the house and in the elevator are my two favorite because of those sharp camera rotations that they do. Or just like, oh my god, it's so fucking cool.
So good. Literally, like normally I'm like, okay, cool, fight scene. Great. They're always fun. I don't think we've had a bad fight scene in the MCU. Except for like the Incredible Hulk. Let's just pretend that movie doesn't exist.
I don't love the drunk Tony fight in Iron Man 2. Like it just feels kind of gross. But that's
like kind of the point.
Well, no, I know. It's just anytime it like gets into the whole substance abuse thing, even if it's just like touching on it just a little bit, because Marvel was still being real careful. It just there's something off about it. Like I'd rather see that approached as a human story and not as a pew pew we're gonna fight now story. But
that's fair. I think that was also
that's one exception to what has been largely a great slew of action shots.
To the point I'm getting, like the only action shots that I've liked more than this are like Endgame, where it's awesome because it's this gigantic, never-ending sweeping shot of everybody. Like, yeah. It's so well done when it decides to cut between locations, when it decides to stick to people, when the camera decides to move. Everything is so thought out and so well done. It's so good looking when it comes to the graphics of it. Like these are three characters that have heavily graphicked superpowers.
CG heavy powers for sure.
And using little things like like Monica's powers when she's using them in the spacesuit. Like she has to bring her hand outside of the spacesuit. It's like it's just the tiny little things that this movie does really well. Like we get Kamala creating like a bar with her light energy so she can swing off of it and kick somebody.
That was dope. She like corners that hallway to kick someone in the face. Oh my god, it was so good. I love too like the growth of Monica Rambeau in this is something that we can't like. She's been in space doing laser things with her powers and touching light and stuff like that. But the fact that in the course of like 2 or 3 days, she's learning how to fly, using going incorporeal so she can like phase through stuff and like she's killing it on the superhero game. And then we
like
get to the climax of the
casually
film where within
repairs
15
the
seconds she
multiverse.
realizes what she has to do and flies through a transdimensional hole in space-time. Like the fuck?
See, that just felt like par for the course for me. Like we're already
it did feel
there.
a bit of a stretch.
Like the whole idea of jump points is that they rip a hole through space-time. They just rip it in such a way that it doesn't break it.
Right, but I just like it did look like okay. So I'm gonna get a little nitpicky about the end of the movie here. It did seem like the way those scenes were shot that it wasn't fully explained in the shooting what was happening. So they went back with ADR and been like, "Oh, we ripped a hole in space time. That must be another dimension or something to that effect." Where it's just like. That's a huge leap in logic from what they expect to just be a hole in space-time to travel between places to, oh, you're entering an entirely new dimension. We don't know what's on the other side of this portal. Here, let me just fly into the unknown and close it up like a superhero would do, which I get that whole heroic sacrifice going in and doing the thing because you know it's what has to be done. It's the fact that they do all of that in like a minute and a half. It's kind of like...
You know, I agree. Like the speed of it...
Really asking us to subvert expectations at that point.
The speed of it is definitely rough, and I think Monica is probably the only character that could pull that off because of just how wicked smart she is.
The whole movie setting her up to be a genius, which I get. Like it makes sense when you look at
like,
the whole flow of the movie.
Little things
that
for
one
me,
scene feels rushed.
Like why I love that is like, let's talk about jump points for a second. Jump points are hexagons.
Yeah.
You know what else are hexagons?
Oh my god, it's the hex.
No, the portals in Spider-Verse.
Oh yeah, I was going with the Wanda thing, but like the Wanda connection.
Well, yeah, the Wanda connection, it was the whole thing. But no, hexagon, like this hexagon look of like things breaking apart, like it is a grid, which it is. It is a multiversal grid. Like it really worked for me. I liked how it looked. I liked the reasons behind it of like, hey, she overloaded the powers too much. Like that's just it makes sense like that's the kind of power that these things would have because that's what they set up. It was already poking holes through space-time. So of course the thing that when it's used too much is it's going to break it. Like they literally set this up at the beginning of the movie. Which she's explaining what she's doing, which is why I'm like, okay, yeah, we're breaking into another multiverse. Cool. It's not a massive issue. You're essentially stopping another incursion, which is kind of becoming a reoccurring thing happening in some of these Marvel movies.
I mean, they were also setting this up in Miss Marvel as well, right? Where the bangle was this gateway or portal into the Noor dimension. So they set it up as like, oh, it's interdimensional in nature in the way that the powers...
And also it literally brought Kamala back in time.
Well, and then there's the whole time travel aspect to it as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like they've been setting all of this up. But at the same time, like the power of the bands doesn't quite match up with the aesthetic that they're going for with the hexagon, with it looking very technical or high tech. So like that's a bit weird for me personally, but that's a nitpick.
Yeah, I guess I justify that kind of stuff with the whole idea of magic versus technology, of magic is tech we haven't seen yet, yada yada yada. Like things are already broken to such a degree that this kind of thing can just snap. Because she's made a bunch of these portals already. Like that, she's using that to make the portals for the ships to fly through to just appear. She's using that to keep portals open to move things. Like she is like stretched this thing far beyond its breaking point already for it to just snap. It's like we said, we're nitpicking, but yeah, I think it's cool. I like the jump points too much for me to not think it's cool.
No, it's cool. I just it for me, it like again. the problem I have with a lot of MCU movies, and I love the MCU, I love what they put together. I do feel like there is a third act problem in this franchise. And I do think that this film suffered from that same problem. I'm not saying the whole film is problematic. I just do feel like the ending does rush to a conclusion without necessarily getting the audience there. They don't do a ton. There are one-liners and stuff in this of like, oh yeah, the band set me back in time. Okay. Oh, it creates a point in space time. Like there's these one-liners that try and set that expectation, but there's such lore behind all of it that it can become a bit challenging to follow. If, let's say, you come into this having not watched Miss Marvel or any Guardians movies, we'll just leave it at that. Like, do you think you as a general audience viewer without that context would come into this understanding what they explain here?
Well, good news. I did that with someone I went and saw this movie with because I was curious about that, and they did. They did understand all that. The thing they didn't understand that I had to explain was why didn't she just pull them closed instead of pushing them closed?
That's
which I was like,
valid point, and that's something I was concerned about as well.
Which I saw that and I'm like, look, they're never going to give us a reason. My headcanon is that she could use her powers to push.
It gives them a story. It gives them a storyline later of getting Photon back into the core.
But the actual headcanon for me is her powers can push. Her powers can't pull. Was my headcanon for it. Of like, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, if that's your concern here, if the rest of everything else makes enough sense for you, perfect. Like, she is not seen Miss Marvel.
I had to spend this week explaining the Loki finale. I don't look forward to having to explain this.
Like this, I feel like this is easy to explain.
Yeah, you don't know who I'm explaining it to.
I'm explaining it to some. I love my friends. I love my friends very, very much. I'm explaining it to some dumb motherfuckers. I love my friends. They're the best. I truly love them. God, they're idiots sometimes. We're all idiots.
Yeah.
This is coming from the person who's writing a D&D campaign for them.
Good luck.
God, it's stressful. No, I think like this. Let's talk about the ending. And I do not mean the actual stuff that we want to talk about. I do want to talk really quickly about just
mid-credit scene.
No, not even that. I want to talk about just them taking her to the house because it's just such a sweet scene with all of them.
Oh, it's so cute. The Khans moving Carol into the house.
And just the sly digs at the brother Amir of like, hey, you should have children.
It's a great place to raise kids. Like, yeah, thanks, Mom.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, let's talk about the ending and the mid-credit scene of the ending. Shit's finally fucking happening, Mitch. I've been screaming about Young Avengers for so goddamn long now.
Didn't see it happening here. Didn't expect Haley Steinfeld to pop up in this.
When I saw New York,
kid superheroes. I'm 23. Like, shut the fuck up. Oh my god, so good.
So good. I'm so excited. It's so well done. I love that it is like a joke on the original Fury scene from Iron Man, and like also Kamala with the hat and flannel, like so good.
Doing her best Feige Nick Fury impression.
Mm-hmm. She straight up looks like she's in Feige cosplay to me.
It's Feige cosplay, but it's Nick Fury.
It's Nick Fury quotes, yeah.
Yeah.
Or like, where'd you get that? I found it on my couch. Like, it's just hilarious to me. I can't wait to see what comes of that. I love that it's like I'm putting feelers out. Did you know Ant-Man has a daughter? Like, it's just so good. I can't wait to see what comes of it.
Think about what they've set up at this point, right? They've set up Wanda's kids regardless of whether or not they exist with powers in this universe or not. They do exist in some universe with those powers.
They'll eventually exist.
We have a potential young Avenger who can travel the multiverse in Xochitl Gomez's Captain or America Chavez.
There you go.
I was getting there. Okay, so we've been watching Dancing with the Stars because Carmen's obsessed with that show, and I'm only watching it because Xochitl Gomez is on this season, and she's friggin' killing it.
Dude, she's like ridiculously talented.
He's too talented. We don't deserve a film that teams up Haley Steinfeld, Iman Vellani, and Xochitl Gomez. Like that, that alone is going to blow our brains. But then you've got Cassie Lang, you've got Scar, you've got Ironheart, you've got the
possible Patriot.
Patriot has been introduced as a character.
Maybe we'll see.
Or as like the person.
I'm interested to see if they do Patriot because Patriot's story is Not
if it's a
necessarily the kind of
multiversal thing, you've got Kid Loki.
We do have Kid Loki.
You've
We could
got
possibly
Scar.
get. We have enough set up so that we could do Iron Lad. I don't think Scar will be a part of it.
I really hope we do Iron Lad at some point. That would be a really interesting story to tell. Like bringing the Young Avengers together and our the audience's representation in that story is an Iron Lad. So for those who don't know, Iron Lad is a younger version of Kang the Conqueror who goes back in time and tries to stop himself from becoming Kang the Conqueror.
Yeah, I think we're getting for our MCU Young Avengers, whether they're going to be called Young Avengers or they're going to be called the Champions, I think we are getting a combination of those two teams.
Yeah.
Obviously, because their big setups here are Ms. Marvel and Kate Bishop, which are the leaders of the Champions and the Young Avengers, respectively. We are in such a point, though, where it's like, I am so excited that these younger characters are the focal point. The MCU has had this very big issue for me since its inception of having started with Iron Man, which you start with Iron Man and you inherently have this older militaristic vibe that is just going to emanate throughout future movies because that's where it was started.
That's the vibe you start with, yeah.
Like, if you look at some of those original ones, we have Iron Man, Hulk, Captain America. Thor is a little bit of a weird spot, but even Thor is fairly militant.
All three of the first ones you mentioned have a militaristic element to it with Thunderbolt Ross, who we know is coming back. We've got Captain America. We've got Thunderbolts. So, like that militaristic vibe is still going to be there. And,
we're not nearly as where it was originally. Like, a lot of those earlier Marvel movies are straight up military propaganda. Like, that's why I hate Iron Man 2 as much as I do.
That's fair.
Like, you can tell we have moved away from that. It's everything that's wrong with
military contracting.
Yeah, and you can tell that, like, these more recent Marvel movies don't necessarily want to be that, but the DNA is very much...
in the best way.
They're very much still there, whether they like it or not. A content creator I fucking love, Jay Stoops. Go follow her if you don't. She is amazing. She had done this TikTok list of like, it's not that the MCU is dying, it's that the MCU is in a very different situation than it was in the post 9/11 world when the MCU started. Like, we are not in that same world anymore, and like, viewers are a lot more conscious about who is making their products as well. So you might even have these stories, like we've talked a lot about how the representation has been very good in these, but it is still Marvel and Disney. We are still a Disney. This is still a Disney podcast, and I'm still going to call Disney on their bullshit when they do a lot of stupid shit, and they do a lot of stupid shit. Look at the fucking strike that just ended.
At least they haven't pulled as recent a boneheaded move as Warner Brothers.
True, very true. They still pull.
But they've done that as well, right? Like, they've removed content from Disney Plus as a tax write-off. Similarly to Warner Brothers, we got to call them all out on this BS because this is content and material that people spend years working on, developing, producing, editing, releasing, promoting, and then it's just gone.
Honestly, I might look into that law and do a video essay on it because that's kind of a fascinating subject.
I'm happy to help you with some of that research.
Thank you. I can't do another law video without help.
No, I got you on this one. We'll tag team it.
But no, I think it's interesting. Like, yeah, we do need a tag team. Also, I need to talk to you about recording a thing for one of the other ones.
We do have to record a thing right after this because I still haven't watched that Inside Out 2 trailer.
Yes, same. Check that out. Video up now. Because that's how timelines work.
Yeah.
No, I do think this is definitely.
Can you tell we're getting back into the swing of things?
Man, I'm just happy to be back.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I definitely think the MCU is in like kind of a weird place these days. Like, of that nature of it. There's definitely superhero fatigue. Less, I still stand that it's less that it's actual superheroes and more it's just extremely similar formulas that I think might finally be changing.
I think it's less the formula because we are seeing this shift from that militaristic, grounded MCU into space and magic and time travel and just weird stuff, like just stuff and things and multiverses and like it gets crazy. I do think what we're suffering from more than anything, like, we aren't suffering from superhero fatigue. I think the studios are suffering from feeling they have to put out the content at the pace that they are to keep up with audiences, to keep eyes on services, to keep Disney Plus afloat by putting out seasonal content that keeps people subscribed because of the weekly release model, which they're not doing with Echo. So that'll be interesting for us to talk about in January.
You know, I think I think these delays might be one of the best things to happen for the MCU.
I agree. 100%. I think, well, I agree and then I don't agree because yes, we'll get a year where we don't get as much. We'll get some Disney Plus stuff. We'll get Deadpool 3. Do you know what we're getting in 2024?
Bits and pieces. We should be getting X-Men 97.
Okay, so 2024 from a film perspective.
Oh, you're talking film only.
Film. Captain America, Brave New World, because I keep forgetting it got a new name. Fantastic Four has not officially been delayed, so that is still coming out in 2025. Thunderbolts is 2025. Blade is 2025. We're getting 4 films in the course of that calendar year, of which I have mid to low expectations of all of them at the moment. Just because of the
I think we're going to get
tumultuous nature of Blade and the early screenings or the test screenings of Brave New World.
Well, they're also
apparently not been good.
Yeah, well, also there's a lot of issues with a particular hero in that.
Good call.
In that particular movie. No, I think we're going to be getting more delays. I think that they're finally realizing that they do need to let things sit a little bit and give them that that quality. Like, you're not making the money without the quality, which is kind of sucks for this movie doing as poorly as it's doing, even though, you know, there's been zero promotion for this movie, yada, yada, yada. I do think you can't talk about the numbers of this movie without talking about the lack of promotion because of the strikes, which were, again, the strikes are a good thing. It's a good thing that those were happening, and it's a good thing those were resolved when how they did. But it does mean that this movie's probably not going to make much money. The studio's going to take the wrong numbers from this, as they always do. Let's talk about the post-credit scene. Obviously, I'm very, very excited for Young Avengers. That's the thing I'm probably most excited for. But fucking Kelsey Grammer came back.
In the MCU. Let's go.
Dude, it's so wild seeing Beast. Like, of all the X-Men I thought we would see, Beast is so low on my list.
See, I had seen interviews with Kelsey Grammer that he had done about how fond he was of that character and how he would love to replay that character because people were interviewing him about other stuff. Be like, hey, Marvel's doing some weird, funky shit with Wolverine and Deadpool. Like, where's Beast and all this? He's like, I would love the opportunity to come back. I'm just like, oh, it's so good. And then, okay, so my lead up to this movie was pretty much, you know, media blackout. But I did get something through my TikTok feed. It was like, oh my God, X-Men confirmed. Storm is in this movie because of a scene from the post-credit scene with Monica. Not thinking, oh, hey, look, it's probably the photons or the binary suit because that would match. But the actor's black. Like, that's got to be Storm. No, it's binary, which is awesome. And it's Maria Rambeau.
Which, for what it's worth, when I saw that, I clocked that uniform in the trailer almost immediately.
Yeah, I just ignored the trailer, but it showed up in my TikTok feed, and I was disappointed by this fucking, yeah.
I clocked that it was binary, but I thought for sure it was just going to be an alternate costume for Carol. Because binary is Carol. So, getting
I kind of... Sorry, go ahead.
Actually getting her, like, her being binary in this, not being Captain Marvel, like she was in Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
Like, it does set this up to be probably the world that is going to be, the X-Men world that is going to be merging with, presumably, movie 616.
I mean, we do see, like, the door, like, people are like, oh my God, that's got to be, like, the Saber equivalent or the Shield equivalent on that planet. I'm like, no.
It's the fucking X-Men.
It's very clearly the X-Men base. Like, that is an X-Men laboratory. It's got the doors from those movies. Like, that's got to be our foil into what is the canonical Fox X-Men universe, and that is just the Captain Marvel that's in that universe, because there's a tight connection between Binary in the comics and the X-Men. Part of that story is Captain Marvel losing her powers to Rogue, and that's how the Rogue in the comics or in the 90s X-Men show gets flight, gets super strength.
And they'll probably go into all of that.
Essentially kills Captain Marvel, puts her in a coma. It's ridiculous, and I love it.
Yeah,
Except
I think
for the whole assault and coma thing.
Going back to Hank for just a second, like, this is extremely wild to me that they chose Hank for this. Like, I think Hank is currently dead in the comic books.
Spoilers.
It's the
Still
major...
catching up on X-Men. I'm only 14 years behind, but like I'm catching up.
Guess what? It was the major freaking thing to happen to the X-Men. Most, I would tell you, it's like 80% of mutants are dead right now. But like Hank is dead right now, and before that, Hank was pretty much a villain. Hank has been a villain for the last like 5-6 years, and it's really weird. I don't like it. So for them to bring us to give us this classic Hank of he is blue, he is in the lab coat, he is being a scientist, he is also still being Beast. They gave it to us in the best possible way. And like it's fucking funny too. Like, well, my theory is that you travel the dimensions, which is impossible. Like, this is just Beast. This is just Dr. Henry McCoy. It is perfect. They nailed it.
Yeah. I do think it's interesting that this film did a really interesting job. Like, it does feel like the 616 MCU universe, which I still don't like calling it that. I don't think it is the 616 equivalent here, but like...
I still like 1999.
I'm 19999 as well. But regardless of that, it does feel like they're setting up this universe to be the one where things happen differently. Where it does seem like the staple of the multiverse is that Maria Rambeau was meant to be Captain Marvel, and that the 616 universe, which is just easier to say, which is why I'm going to go with that, the MCU 616 is the exception of that, where it ended up being Carol. Because you've got that heartbreaking conversation as well, which we didn't even talk about, with the Kree torture devices, where Carol went back to Earth and we had no idea. And it was to meet, or it was to sit with Maria. Like, I'm so glad.
Well, I'd always assumed she had come back during the blip times, because like we have like those Avengers calls and whatnot. But to actually get it, like, no, she did visit her best friend as she was dying. Like,
yeah. And it's just like, oh, that scene was such heartbreak. I'm like, okay, that's the reason why Carol's not coming back.
It's a gut punch in the perfect way,
which would have been fair. Yeah, but even still, there's a moment there where she's like, it should have been you. I'm like, nah, I wouldn't have enjoyed being Captain Marvel. But every other incarnation of Captain Marvel that we've seen across the multiverse, be it Multiverse of Madness or this movie, it's still more multiversal equivalent. It's more variants of a character than we've seen of anyone else except for Loki at this point, right? So it does seem like the general
There's one other.
Okay, I gotta think.
I'll give you a hint. It's the famous one.
It's Doctor Strange.
No.
Well, I mean, we did see a bunch of Doctor Stranges, but yeah, who do you think?
But it's fucking Spider-Man.
Oh yeah, that's only 3. It's the same that we've seen here.
Do you need me to remind you that Across the Spider-Verse is established in the same multiverse?
Okay, I was shut up. You're right, but that
I broke Mitch.
A little bit, just a little bit. Animation notwithstanding, the trend for this character, apart from I guess it's like 50-50, because you look at What If, and that was also Carol.
I don't think
animation notwithstanding, we've seen 3 versions of this character, and 2 of them have been Maria Rambeau. So
I do think that it's one of those things of it's 50-50.
An interesting place to get to,
like, because it could only be those 2 people, right? Like, there isn't anyone else it could be, except for maybe Marvel. But again,
it's the multiverse. Literally anything could happen. It could be that neither of them were born, and it's Steve from Wisconsin. Like that's the whole problem with the multiverse. Is literally you have an infinite number of possibilities.
Well, yeah, but also we're never going to address those ones because they're stupid, frankly.
No. The Nexus event there is somebody becoming Captain Marvel.
Yeah,
and it seems like the general consensus of the universes that survive is that it's more often than not Maria than Carol.
Mm-hmm. I definitely am really excited. This is the most excited I've been for the multiversal shenanigans. Like, I didn't like Multiverse of Madness. I
liked Multiverse of Madness a lot as like a Sam Raimi movie. I didn't love it as much for universe building. I think this does a way better job.
I think the movie had
universe
issues
building
that Sam Raimi couldn't fix.
Like, there's that. I really wish Scott Derrickson had gotten to make his horror movie.
Like,
it would have been so good
the
and
like
so
the multiversal shenanigans from Quantumania didn't really hit for anybody, particularly because it's really just the Council of Kings at the very end. The multiversal nature of some of that stuff, like we have this looming multiversal threat from Loki, but even then, that one doesn't go into the multiverse as much as I would like it to.
As much as my fan theories do.
Yeah, right.
I have theories, Griffin.
But I do think
I have
like
so many
this
theories.
is easily for me so far been the most interesting dip into the multiverse with a single post-credit scene, and I think that we're gonna blow that out of the water with Deadpool 3.
Oh yeah,
Ultimately,
I can't wait.
like I said at the top of the show, this is the most excited I have been for the future of the MCU since like I messaged this to you. This is the most excited I've been for MCU future since like seeing Spider-Man in the Captain America Civil War trailer. Like, I really am excited for the storylines we're getting here. Like, we have multiple storylines we're rolling with right now. We have the street level stuff. We have the Young Avengers stuff. We have the multiverse stuff. And I'm excited on all fronts for that. It's great. It's a great time to be.
It is, but the thing is, Ryan Reynolds has come out of this post-SAG-AFTRA strike void that we've had and filled it with just the most amazing news in the world. That Dogpool is going to appear in Deadpool 3, and that just warms my heart.
Dude, could you imagine if we got the fucking Deadpool Corp?
I don't think it's an if, but a when. If we get an animated Deadpool voiced by Nolan North,
I think that is a when. I think that's a very realistic.
I would. Oh my! If we
have you
don't
played
get
that
a
game?
scene in that movie of Wolverine and Deadpool getting thrown through the multiverse, and they land in the animated X-Men '90s universe, but in live action against these 2D characters, I'm going to be very disappointed in that movie. You can hold me to it. Exactly, the exact opposite of Spider-Verse.
Yeah, I think we'll be getting some shenanigans there, and I can't wait. Obviously, we have our bits and pieces from photos and whatnot. We've seen like the crumbled 20th Century Fox
It's happening.
thing. Like, it's going to be a fun movie. I can't wait. Like I said, I'm excited for the future, and I'm really happy that it was the Marvels that got me excited for the future. With that, it feels like it's a good place today to wrap it up. There's two actors though I want to shout out in this film before we go, and that's Nemo and Tango, the cats that play Goose. They're just wonderful. They're great. Shout out to Reggie,
Why would they
Archie, Rizzo, and
recast
Gonzo.
the cats? Those first cats were so good.
Oh,
I don't get it.
All those cats are still.
Why?
Mitch, I'm not going to talk to you about the possibilities of this because it's very sad.
Those other cats are 100% dead.
Oh, they're definitely
dead.
dead.
They're super dead.
Okay, all that said, we're going to wrap this thing up. We've got so much we want to talk about now that the strike is over. There's so much that we're going to be going into, so stick
There's not
around.
enough time to record it all, Griffin. There's so much stuff.
Go watch our trailer reacts, our first one in God knows how long, to Inside Out 2. Mitch, do we like the trailer?
Probably.
We've already established we haven't seen it yet, and we haven't recorded this yet, because time is a flat circle.
So I'm covering my bases. We probably love it.
Yeah,
I love that movie.
the answers are yes, no, or possibly, to be determined.
I'm going to go with yes.
Go check out our video essays. We have one up at the moment, and the second one will be coming soon. I am literally recording the last bits of it tomorrow, and I'm very excited for to be doing that. Yeah. We'll be bringing back the weekly show here soon.
Give me some more behind the attraction, baby. We had actually talked just, behind the curtain. We had talked about doing it just because documentaries weren't struck by the ongoing job action that was happening in the movie and television industry, but we decided we were going to hold off anyway. And I think our decision to do that, Griffin, single-handedly.
I was going to say, we had that conversation, and then like 2 days later, the strike ended.
So I am very grateful to us for having that conversation on whether or not we were going to talk about
We've
that.
had a lot of those conversations.
Ending the entire strike.
We had a lot of conversations like, can we talk about this right now or not? Probably not.
It was more should we? And 98% of the time the answer was no.
No.
And which I think I'm proud of us for doing that.
Solidarity forever. Yeah, go check out our stuff. Go check out us, D plus us everywhere. We will see y'all in the next episode. But until then, have a magical day.
Excelsior.
It's so good to be back.